Welcome, friends. Welcome, welcome. It's good to see people coming in. Hi, Madam Mahadi. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
All the better for seeing you. Yeah.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Hi, Shalini. Hi, Sunish. I recognize two names, so I can just say hi to them.
Oh, that's great.
Hi everyone.
Hi, Neha, of course.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, Neelam. Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Very welcome. Absolutely.
Okay, so welcome everyone to the Elders Council webinar, where we have the great pleasure and honor of having both Gary Cohen and Neelam Chhiber with us today to talk about the very important and highly troublesome issue in many cases of the issue of heroes within the social enterprise community. We know that it's so important to shine the light on social enterprise and the wonderful work everyone's doing to make change around the world. But when it goes over into heroes, it can be troublesome. So today's discussion is going to be an interactive one. Gary and Neelam will speak, and then we'd love people to put questions both in the chat and to come into the discussion later on. This will be recorded, so if you don't want to be recorded, please stay on mute and put your questions in the chat, and have a wonderful hour with our wonderful speakers and our fellow social entrepreneurs. So I'm handing you over now to Gary Cohen to speak about this very interesting issue. Gary.
Thank you, Andrea.
And thanks for the Elders Council for organizing this event and so many other events, bringing issues to the fore that we all need to be grappling with. And lovely to meet you, Neelam, first time, and very excited to be joining this virtual stage with you. Let me say a few opening comments. We all have heroes, people who inspire us. It could be our grandparents or parents, people in our neighborhood, people who provide role models for us. I mean, heroes and heroines are critical characters in our collective psyche and our cultural myths and our narratives. I mean, everything from Rama to King Arthur to Martin Luther King to Gandhi to Aung San Suu Kyi, Mandela, even in our popular culture, Harry Potter, Wonder Woman. Heroes are so much a part of our collective experience. And if anybody's ever read, if you haven't read the book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell, he talks about how in all these different cultures around the world, there are these archetypal images of heroes. And there's millions of them that we've never heard of. In the social change world, and many mythologies, heroes are usually seen as lone individuals who are making history, people who are scaling mountain upon mountains to heal a part of the world and the human family. They're standing up to injustice. They're pulling millions of people out of slavery like Moses, and poverty and oppression. And this mythology of the lone hero has really been infused in the myth of the social entrepreneur. Ashoka, Skoll Foundation, others have canonized these heroes in the earlier stages of their strategies. I think I was in the same year as Andrea Coleman when we each got the Skoll Award, 2006, however long ago. And when I went on stage to get the plaque, social entrepreneur plaque, on one side of me was Robert Redford, and the other side of me was Ben Kingsley. So we had the Sundance Kid and Gandhi. And so it was a lot of stress. You know, I was just a guy from New Jersey, you know, there's like these superheroes. And so they're there's sort of fundamental problems. I would say there's two fundamental problems with this lone individual hero or heroine. First, it's not really how systems change works. Change requires organizations, ecosystems, networks, movements. Heroes alone don't make systems change. Martin Luther King, without a broader movement underpinning him, that gives him power to then go and confront the white power structure, to cede power. Same with Gandhi, same with so many others. Individuals are not strong enough. And for too long, philanthropy and the business community and political structures have focused on the lone individuals as the change makers. And there's so many awards out there that celebrate individual heroes and heroines. I've been fortunate to even get a few of those awards. But while it's a great privilege to get these awards, and there's sometimes recognition and good recognition and sometimes money that goes along with it, it doesn't recognize the people who have nurtured me, the organizations and I live with under the movement that has created who I am in this situation. And it helps explain to me why some foundations have really not understood how to fund systems change. They're either funding the individuals as the change agents, or they're funding very, very specific projects in a very specific place, but they're not understanding the broader ecosystem. The hero is, there's sort of a fundamental error in strategy. We need to fund networks. We need to fund movements rather than being focused on the individual hero and heroine. And I'll just mention, Catalyst 2030 has sponsored a letter and call to action to philanthropy to change the model of funding. And there's been over 1,000 organizations in 80 countries that have signed on to this letter. So if you haven't seen it, it's on the Catalyst 2030 website, and it speaks to this very point. So that's one of the fundamental problems. The second has to do with the well-being of the hero. The hero's well-being is often sacrificed in this process. The hero is reinforced to scale and do more. If you're in 5 countries, go to 10 countries. If you're addressing the livelihood of 20,000 women, 1 million women, if you just constantly scaling and being asked to do more and more and more. If you're educating girls, educate all the girls in India, sacrifice, save more rainforests, reduce more climate impacts, get more companies onto the sustainable development goals. The heroes are not reinforced almost ever to take care of their well-being, their bodies, their spirits. They're not reinforced to prioritize relationships over their mission. Nobody says, go home and make love to your partner as opposed to go and change the world. Doesn't happen. So I think this reinforcement pushes the hero or heroine to really burn out and not take care of themselves. And that in turn creates a toxic culture inside of the organizations. Everybody's reinforced to work more. There's kind of an arms race to say, oh, I worked over the weekend. Oh, I got up at 6 this morning and I worked, for 15 hours. Oh my goodness. And we all know people that have burned out because they didn't take care of themselves. So it's not at a personal level. It's not even a great strategy for personal change. And the Wellbeing Project, which has just organized a major summit in Bilbao, Spain, some of you may have been there, is working to change this narrative, to integrate inner work in ourselves and outer work as critical to social change work. And I'm happy to see Stephen Hausner on the phone, who also does a lot of this inner work for the Wellbeing Project. So the question is, what is the hero's journey or the heroine's journey at this this critical moment on the planet. And I would say a couple things. One, it's being aware in the broadest way of the multiple crises that we are living in now, not just the one piece of the work that we're doing, but the whole dimensions of what's happening on the planet from an ecological point of view, from a political point of view, from a social cultural point of view, from a business point of view, and being conscious of all of it, honestly. I think the second is, even despite the sort of breaking down of so many systems, is acting from a place of hope, despite the challenges and that despair that is around many of us and the work that we face, these enormous challenges, coming with a sense of hope. And the third is, I think, centering ourselves through practices, prayer, meditation, song, poetry, whatever it is that moves you, to hold the ocean of suffering that we bear witness to. And fourth, which I think is the most important thing, is to build a community of like-minded spirits that are also on this hero's journey with us. So in my view, in the systems change work, the hero is neither a leader alone nor a servant, but I would say more of a midwife, to guide the passage and help to give birth to movements and radical new ideas that can live on in the world. They understand that their work will never be done, that the momentum that they create will outlive them. So it's critical to bring other people along in the work. The hero's work, like the midwife, is to empower people, to inspire the heroic qualities in them. If anyone has ever witnessed a woman giving birth, it is nothing short of heroic. The midwife supports the heroism, reminds the woman to breathe, to rest, to push when necessary. Ultimately, the work is the woman's work. So humility in that role for the hero is a very important dimension. I think the best heroes are those that awaken their heroic qualities in all of us, that inspire us to manifest our own mythic journeys. The Vietnamese monk and meditation teacher Thich Nhat Hanh once said that the next Buddha will be the community. It'll be the circle rather than the individual. That vision resonates with me. How can we have organizations of heroes, networks of heroes, movements brimming with enlightened heroes and heroines? I'll stop there.
Gary, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. I love the way in which you brought the circle of your thinking round back to the beginning again, as it were. Neelam, you're most welcome. Why don't you make your contribution now?
Yeah, thanks. I think I'll start with where Gary started, thanking the Elders Council for putting out these wonderful events. And thanks, Chris, you told me this wasn't a debate, but yeah, I also serve a purpose in terms of, so you know something, Gary, I hated being a leader, right? I'm a designer. I always carry that with me. You know, I'm a designer. I was never a social activist. I was never supposed to be an agent of social change. And then when I had to work with rural artisans in villages, I realized what I had to do for them was understand markets for them. So I used to stammer as a child. And I wouldn't even go into a shop and ask for the price of something because I was scared I would stammer. You know, so I tell my brother, you go ask. I didn't stammer a lot, but I would stammer at critical moments, you know. So after I set up Industree and I had to open a shop because I had to understand how consumers bought product. And I stood in the shop for 3 years and I told my co-founder, I can't stand in a shop. I can't sell. I mean, I couldn't even buy stuff at a shop. I was scared. She said, no, you'll do it, you'll do it. So I'm just saying that we surmounted a lot of things for our people or for whatever it is that we were doing. And that's kind of the lens Chris gave me when he said, Neelam, you speak a bit about what it is like for our women on the ground. So I'll just come with that lens because I'm supposed to provide another lens, though I resonate 1001 degrees with you. Okay. But the lens is that because so we work with very, very, very vulnerable women in tribal India or even in very progressive states of India like Tamil Nadu. And, we do gender trainings with them. And in the gender training, it'll emerge. I told my husband, you can't slap me any longer. And he said, okay, I didn't know I couldn't slap you. I'll stop slapping you. And I'm like, this is the situation, right? And here I am, this emancipated, forward woman. My husband's on the call, extremely supportive. He's here somewhere, Jacob, right? And I realize, I hate it. I hate the whole Indira Gandhi culture. I hate the culture of having this. Luckily, there are no photographs of me up anywhere. Thank God. And we build collectives. So in the collectives, it's the women's photographs. It's theirs. It's not ours. It belongs to them. But for them to have a role model is great, like you said, right? It's great that everyone has a role model, right? And when you were talking about role models, I remember reading about Gandhi when as a young person. And the only thing I took away from Gandhi's journey was that Gandhi was a great movement leader, but actually his sons didn't like him. And from there I took away that I could be the biggest change maker on the planet, but if my kids didn't like me, it was just not worth it, right? So we all take whatever is heroic about the people around us and absorb it. And I believe that my women on the ground just need this figurehead once in a while. I show up in the field once in a while. We have a lot of women leaders in our midst. But I understand their need, right? Because it's just a culture they've been brought up in. Yeah. But I really and truly resonate with you on your point of us being organizations of heroes. Because to me, that's my biggest takeaway in having built my organization to where it is. There are a few people on the call here from my organization who've come on their own. Yeah. And the well-being aspect, as a woman, I'm lucky. I told everyone, the day I become a grandmother, I'm gone. And believe it or not, I'm becoming a grandmother in October. That's also when I turn 60. Yeah. And I'm not gone, but I'm on a 4-month sabbatical and I'm gone in 18 months because the teens need a little bit of more hand-holding. But yeah, I think having these marks, that these kind of moments that we put for ourselves in our well-being journey is the most critical. I was just telling a change management group that's working with us today that the organization has benefited the most from my spiritual practice of last 6 months. I have been a spiritual practitioner for 25 years in Advait. But I started going regularly for the satsang, where we all meet and talk closely about stuff 3 days a week over the last 6 months. And the people who generally go for satsang are people who have troubled marriages or troubled family life or trouble with something or the other. But I go because I just wanted to understand how I could support my organization. And on the hero part, where we got to build organizations of heroes, I'll come back to that again and again and again. And I'll come back to your point on the pressure we all face in doing what we do, because frankly, there are not very many of us out there. There are, but the ones who kind of claw up the cliff, claw up every little opportunity and get to somewhere, we feel an added burden to kind of pull everything along up with us. And that's a burden which is very tough to carry, and we should not carry it. I 100% agree. It's a burden we should distribute through networks. I'm a very active member of Catalyst 2030, and that was one of the key reasons. I just wanted to get in there and understand at the core how networks were built. It was a very amazing journey for me. I just watched Jiru in action, and I realized that my life of 30 years as a social entrepreneur, or 25 years or whatever it was, had made me quite a territorial person. And I learned to undo that. And I've been undoing it now for almost 3 years. Just today morning, I was thinking back that in the first 3 months of when I launched a network in India in COVID 1.0 called Creative Dignity, I'm looking at the time without my specs. So Chris, just raise a thumb or whatever it means. Yeah. I remember how I was like after having watched Jiru and Catalyst 2030 closely for about 6-9 months. When I got into CD, I was my territorial self. And then in about 6 months, 7 months, I just started changing. It was like you just let go. If you let go, the power of collective intelligence happens. And that's when the power of networks happen. And I would say organizationally, when we let go and we let all the heroes in our organizations come in with their collective intelligence and with the networks beyond them, I see some people in my organization struggle because they've also had this journey of kind of crawling up the tough way in their fields. And it's tough for them to let go of the fact that they know. But the minute we let go of that, I think we ignite something very powerful. And that's a journey I would wish for every social entrepreneur, because it's so lightening. And the burden goes off you and you become a better person and you engage better with everyone around you. And the heroes then just blossom around us. So I'm pretty much done, Chris. If you think, yeah.
Thank you, Neelam, very much indeed for taking the thread which Gary has been unraveling for some time and then taking it in your own direction, which is exactly what we wanted. And thank you particularly for sharing those moments towards the end of your talk when you were talking about the letting go process and realizing that there were other ways to do things and so on, which it's not easy for people always to recognize that kind of thing or to quote unquote admit it. And so I think that's very helpful for all of us. And I appreciate that very much indeed. This is the time that we're going to be involving colleagues and friends on the who are participating with us. And I wondered, Megan, whether you'd like to jump in first of all, and then I'll invite others to come in.
Sure, thanks. I hope I'm not muted. Yeah, I'm not muted. So such a pleasure to see all my tribe on this call. Always, that makes my heart warm and makes me feel about 3 inches off the ground, and great to see everybody healthy and obviously thriving. So for those of you who don't know, I took over for a hero and then did a pretty heroic job myself in 10 years of trying to scale and grow and expand the vision and actually make real the hero's dreams, I think. And that's a pretty unique opportunity, right? And one of the things that really bothered me when I first stepped into the role at Barefoot was that the world knew the hero and they actually didn't know the people who really did the work. And I found that super frustrating, and somehow it offended my sense of justice, that that we all seemed very obsessed with one individual and putting everything on one individual. And I had stepped into an organization that was 100% a collective, where many, many, many people all over the world, including partners and including multilateral organizations and even governments, were making the organization work and run and grow. And so that sort of became a little bit my mission. For those of you who know me, I talk a lot about collaboration and radical partnership, and how we can really leverage and develop pipelines of talent. It's really, Gary, what you said. You know, the greatest joy is, for me, was when people stopped asking for Bunker Roy to speak, and then they stopped asking for Megan Falone to speak, and then they finally would ring up and say, can someone from Barefoot come? And then I thought, yes, job done. Like, now it's the institution, the organization that has developed a process for raising talent up, leveraging people, bringing young people into the organization, giving them a voice, and then seeing that they can take over, which has now happened since I stepped out of that. And so that's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful experience. And I do think in our sector that is what will be needed of all of us as leaders for whatever entity we start and run, if we want the sector to thrive and to be able to work collaboratively and collectively, and to really develop leaders within it who have that right vision. I think the tension comes, and both of you touched on it, the tension comes because so many of the external stakeholders need to anchor themselves in one person. And so you are a bit torn always between, how do I meet that need for the stakeholders who need that, and how do I still keep it real and lift up everybody in the organization and the beneficiaries, more importantly, to empower them. So yeah, I think it's not an exact science, but I think it's a lot of self-reflection along the way and course correction. And you need good friends who tell you you've got it wrong, take a different approach. And that's really what I used the community for. Listened and learned from all of you to think differently as I went through that journey.
Megan, thank you. Thank you for that. And also for sharing some of the ways in which you yourself have handled the situation that you described. Parul Sheth, you have been making quite a few interesting remarks on the chat, and I wondered whether you'd like to come in. You made a remark around you said it's very difficult to get support for a team rather than a person by way of fellowship or any other way. I wonder whether you'd like to come in. Are you there, Parul?
Parul, she's there. Can you unmute Parul? Or unless your Wi-Fi is not great.
Let me jump in while we're seeing if people can get unfrozen. I mean,
Sure.
you know, one thing that was interesting being in the Skoll community was this, you know, it was this hero worship. It was, you know, it was Paul Farmer and Muhammad Yunus and people, Malala, right? And what, after about, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 10 years maybe of all these awards and incredible, you know, paparazzi getting these awards, 1/3 of all the people who were running the organizations had left the organizations. And so it created this question. It's like, well, wait a second, maybe our theory of change isn't right here. Maybe it's not the individual, maybe it's really the organization. And so, I mean, I resonate with what Megan said. It's like, how do we bring others along? So, you know, sometimes if people get invited to Davos, they actually believe the myth that they're really important, you know, because all these other important, rich business people and political people are there. It's like, I must be important because I'm in Davos. And so we have to work against this mythology, and wherever we can bring as vegans, bring other people along to the funder meeting, to the speaking opportunity, to the whatever it is, especially young people who we want them to take up our work. The work is never done, you know, and I think about the African National Congress. It started in the 1890s. It took almost 100 years to win independence in South Africa. So social movements take long times. And so we have to be cultivating heroes, young heroes, all along the way, in order to do the work. Otherwise, the work will end with us. It was a great heroic moment, but it's done. That's not okay. We need to really be nurturing that. And I saw there was a comment from Jacob. He says, doesn't everyone have a hero's journey? Absolutely. Everyone does have a hero's journey. And our job as leaders is to kind of ignite that, is to inspire people to say, yeah, follow your dream, man, woman, do it. We will support you in doing that. That's one of the great gifts we have as leaders, is that we get to influence other people to awaken that hero's spirit, that mythic journey inside of their own psyche and soul.
Gary, thank you. Stefan, can you hear me now?
It's very unstable for me. I'm sorry. I just wanted to write in the chat.
Okay, we were going to talk to you about your view of well-being for heroes. That was the idea, and of course, we've only given you a minute to do it.
Maybe give me a little bit of time to think about it, because it's probably spontaneous.
Yes.
And I'm listening, and I'm really grateful to be part of this. I just wanted to write in the chat, as I said before.
Yeah.
But please give me a minute.
No problem.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. And don't worry, if you take more time, it's not a problem for us. Parul,
yes.
Thank you. I can hear your voice beautifully now. You were making a number of important comments in the chat. Would you like to elucidate those a little bit, please? Just flesh out these ideas a bit.
Sure. So I had these two major things that I wanted to say. One is that I'm an Ashoka Fellow myself, because I think someone has made that. And I have argued sometimes with a lot of leaders in Ashoka also, that why don't we have, like a team or a collective, especially in Ashoka, there is this youth venture program. So instead of promoting one youth, why don't we have a team of young people who we can support? Because see, one person always is not. Now if that person, because of that pressure, I supported one person, that person grew, and now he left or she left. Now there is no one else. But if it is a team, then even if one person goes, so collective is compared to very strongly.
Okay.
Second thing is that so like how can we create the systems, or how can we create support system to support individuals? Maybe it could be fellowship.
We're losing you, Carol.
Yes, thanks, Andrea.
I'm sorry about it.
No, don't worry. It's
network very bad. Can you hear me?
We do have a problem with with the second part of your question. The first part came over fine, and the first point you made, it came over fine. Hey Jung, you have put a question to Gary in the chat. Do you want to just repeat the question and then come?
Yes. Yeah. So my question was whether you also, as a fellow, Ashoka Fellow and Skoll Fellow, think Ashoka and Skoll and maybe other organizations focused on electing individuals as fellows and celebrating them rather than the whole organization or the movement behind it. This approach, it has worked over the last 30, 40 years, but maybe the world has changed and we need a different way of doing it. Do you think Ashoka and Skoll are taking this, taking this kind of the need to change, our approach seriously, or has there been any attempt by Elders Council or any others to kind of convey this message to such organizations? I'm just curious because I think, because I work for Ashoka and I've been here for 10 years, I think, Ashoka's way of electing fellows and the purpose and the method of electing fellows has not changed much over the last 4 decades almost. So maybe it's a good time to kind of revisit and see how we can do better, taking all these considerations into account.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And it is a good moment to kind of revisit the criteria of, it's a good idea to raise up people who are doing good work. There's no question about that. It's about maybe the criteria and what we're rewarding those people to do is in fact building these networks and building these organizations, and not necessarily being these just a lone hero. I mean, it could be part of the criteria that Ashoka and Skoll kind of build into their DNA going forward. There's sort of a related point, that, I mean, Stephen has been thinking about what he wants to say, but, Andrea and I and a few others have been part of this wellbeing project, which allows people at 3 different times, different groups of 20 or so people to come together and really explore what are those inner resources, inner practices that can actually sustain people so they don't get burnt out, so they understand how to take care of themselves through contemplative practice, through all sorts of other internal journeys, as it were. And what's interesting about that is that it can be incredibly powerful and empowering for those individuals. But if they go back to those same cultures in their own organizations, there's not enough support for them, right? It's like all the other inertia is in the other direction. Everybody's working too much. Everybody's, and so an interesting model would be, and maybe it's being tried now by the Wellbeing Project, is doing it for organizations, so that we're raising the resonance of entire organizations to reward well-being, reward taking time, reward kind of life-work balance, so that we're not sort of helping somebody be incredibly inspired in this incredible retreat, and they go back to this totally toxic culture and they're eaten up, and all the good things they learned in that, fall away. So, the more that we can have this community of practice, Neelam talked about a sangam, like a community. The more that we create that resonance among this group, among Catalysts, among Ashoka, among Skoll, among all these different networks, we raise the resonance of what it means to be a leader. What does it mean to be a hero or heroine? And we can reward different kinds of behaviors.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you very much, Hye-Young. Neelam, did you want to come in on that point? The basic question came from Hye-Young, as you know, but then there was the beginning, and then Gary jumped in with some of his own thoughts.
No, but frankly, I think what Hye-Young said is right. 30 years ago, it was very relevant. I still remember reading the Ashoka book on how to change the world, David Bornstein, where Jeru was mentioned as a case. I still remember reading it, okay? I think it's outdated. I think it served its purpose. Now, this is the technique. I mean, I'm sure, I can't remember his name right now, the founder of Ashoka, I'm blank, but doesn't matter. I'm sure the gentleman did it with good intentions, but that's what venture capitalists and angel funders and seed funders do today. They invest in a person. So that seems to be your only credibility, right? That as a person, are you committed? Are you great? Are you la la la? And that entire organization thing is just overlooked. It's quite crazy, actually. And I frankly think it's quite outdated. It was needed 30 years ago, maybe. I don't know if it's needed now. And if it's needed, maybe it's needed at a certain time, at a certain scale. But after a certain scale, I think the shift to many heroes, I'm not using the word organization. I'm not using the word networks. I'm not using all those words because they are presumptive, right? But I'm saying this single hero to multiple heroes, and then why heroes? It's like, why heroes? Why does anybody have to be extra special? But you see, everybody is a hero within themselves. Just acknowledging that. I'm taking Jacob's words out of his mouth here, right? Because everybody, even that woman who goes back and tells her husband, don't slap me, you're not supposed to, she's a hero, right? She took it on herself to go and tell her husband something that she learned. So as of now, I'll just park it from single hero to multiple hero. The discussion should move, definitely.
Great, great. Thank you. Mel, you had your hand up there, I think.
Yes, thank you. I had a question to both Gary and Neelam. I think one of the challenges that I face and others face, even if we totally agree with everything you're saying in wise words, is that the culture in the world out there is about celebrity. And we end up, whether we like it or not, playing that game because we can see that our organizations or our social mission will be advantaged when we play the game. I remember listening to Sully, who was this pilot who landed the plane on the Hudson River when the engines failed. And he had a fascinating insight when he said to the media afterwards, it was a team effort. It wasn't just me, it was the first pilot and the crew and everything else that was in there. And he kept on saying this, and the media just wouldn't listen at all. They wanted the hero, which was him. And then he said, eventually I gave up and changed the narrative and let them have the hero. So whilst we might want to understand that it's a collective and we are a community together, how do we challenge out there that pressing culture when we know practically we need to engage with it because it gives us the outcomes that we might want?
Thank you very much for that, Mel. Mel, by the way, is the third of the co-founders of the Elders, along with Andrea and myself. Parul, you're on the phone now. Let's hear your voice. Just see if we can hear your voice.
Yes, is it better now?
Now we can really hear you. That's good. Now you have another challenge, which is that we are getting short on time. So if you could put your points succinctly, that would be very helpful to me.
Sure. So my other point is the one, as I said, how can we promote collective leadership rather than individual leadership? My other point is it is also very, very difficult and challenging to kind of, do the succession plan by stepping back and identify the young people who are capable and committed. And what would be some effective strategies to do that? So that is my second question.
Yeah, that's great. Of course, succession is the bread and butter of the Elders Council. So I'm hoping, Parul, that you'll attend every single webinar that we have from now on, because in the end, we will jointly become wise on that issue. But of course, it will take a little while. So you're now locked in for at least 5 years, but you're welcome. Gary or Neelam, did you have any comments you'd like to make to Parul's either of her points that she's made? Gary, you look
I'll answer that as well as Mel's point. So yeah, I mean, the culture is a celebrity culture, right? And so the question is whether we buy into it and how much we buy into it, and whether we're just conscious of playing the role as opposed to actually believing in our own mythology that we really are heroes. And so I think that, I was one of the people who brought environmental health to the healthcare sector, not understanding that a healthy environment is crucial to having healthy people. And if you've got a poisoned environment from fossil fuels and toxic chemicals and industrial agriculture, you're not going to have healthy people on this planet. Like, such an obvious thing, really. But I was one of the first people to bring that to the healthcare sector. And so that's made me a hero in some ways. But it's been so clear to me that if we, the organization that I helped to create, Healthcare Without Harm, if it doesn't build a movement inside of healthcare, then we will not have succeeded. Not just ourselves as an organization, but to sort of be the Intel chip inside of the DNA inside of healthcare, to change its orientation about what does it mean to heal, not just individuals, but communities and the planet. Like, if we don't do that, then we don't really achieve anything heroic here. And so being conscious of that and then playing the role that I have to play, that dance is, I think, some of the kind of the art of it all, you know. That's all I'll say.
So it's the balancing on the one hand of leadership, to find another word,
Yeah.
Which I don't think you dispute is necessary.
What's necessary?
Yeah. And on the other hand, then we get to this question of the celebrity and all the rest of it.
You're not being seduced. Don't being seduced by your own mythology, you know?
Yeah, that's great. Gary, thank you, Gary. Neelam, did you want to make
I have a concrete example that in some way may respond to Mel and to Parul. So Mel, it's very interesting. It's and it's linking up with that the whole system works towards the creation of celebrity culture. So what happens when we talk about succession? The first thing we should actually do is hand over cash flow. Because the person who's going to take over should handle cash flow. We should not have anything to say in cash. So that's what I did. Just handed over cash flow for 18 months. That was the test. So cash flow is handed over. I have nothing to say in money matters. Then I realized something. The pressure on the hero managing cash flow is superhuman. And I can move aside and I can talk about collective intelligence, whereas that poor man is driven by the exact same things that Parul and you are speaking about, Mel, that donors understand project language. Okay, forget donors understand heroes, but donors understand a particular kind of language, and he's got to stay ensconced in that language. And if he's got to think movements, and he's got to think these great thoughts, the poor soul is in a trap. I can see it. I see it, you know, and of course I guide and I show them this is a trap. But you see, it is so difficult for human beings in our sector because there are so many clashes going on. And I think that's why finally it gets to us that we actually could be slightly superhuman. That's a joke, okay? Yeah, but it's crazy on how we have to perpetuate certain things. Where is unrestricted funding? Where is the money for us to think as collectives? All that stuff, right? So one of the world's largest agencies has said that they will give for collective formation $300,000 over 5 years. What kind of collective is that going to get you in your lifetime? Anyway, so I'll just park all that. Yes, there are huge conundrums out there, but there is a pathway to succession, Parul. Definitely, and please be at the Elders Council. They will tell you more about it, and we shall all share more. Yeah, I'm done with that.
Thank you. Interesting comment going on from He Yong, which I think would be probably worth just bringing out very quickly, He Yong, if you don't mind, just very briefly. You're on mute right now.
Oh, yes. I just thought of this maxim or phrase, like, you know, rather than trying to fight the old, you know, why don't we use our energy to create the new, you know, more innovative? And I think actually such movement, such developments are already on the way, already happening in the social sector and especially in the philanthropy sector. And as I wrote in the memo, collective impact, you know, I think which has been around in the past 10 years. There are a lot of like research and case studies already done, and I believe some of Ashoka Fellows are already kind of, you know, the proven examples of successfully doing this collective impact work. And also more recent terminology and concept is a big bet philanthropy, which is to really, you know, give minimum $10 million to the same organization or initiative, you know, so that they can actually, you know, make this quality transition or transformation, which will, I think, you know, give a lot of opportunity for the individual social entrepreneur to kind of, you know, lift up and kind of, you know, take off some of the burdens of having to make that big transition or of scaling out or scaling up, you know, and if you think about $10 million for an organization, it cannot be for one individual, right? It's really kind of recognizing and rewarding and investing in the entire organization and the related other organizations or partners or the you know, the whole ecosystem basically. So I think we should try to make more connection with those new developments and see how that can help us kind of revisit our emphasis on the importance of social entrepreneurs as individuals, because I think these are both very important, not one or the other. We don't have to choose one or the other. I think these both can go hand in hand. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So we're just coming to the end of our session, and I'm going to invite Mel to summarize or to make one or two takeaway comments. Stefan has, because he has had some problems with his internet connection, he's written here, "Thank you for including me, Chris, in the conversation. As time gets short, I just want to write a bit here. I'm still sitting, let me just get it. I am still sitting with Gary's sentence, the well-being of the hero is often sacrificed. I would love to look a bit deeper into that topic, asking what are the movements or aspects within the system or community itself that nourish or create that sacrifice." That's a very interesting point. And of course, we would love Stefan to work with you on that and make sure that you have a platform to share your ideas. That would be very, very nice for us to do. I would like, thank you very much indeed, everyone who's participated. And thank you for the important conversation that we've had today. Mel, I'd like you to come in now, if you would, please, and give some takeaways and, of course, the usual warm thanks from the Elders Council.
Thanks, Chris. Yes, and indeed, thank you very much, because this was once again a very rich conversation, I think, and one that's really topical and very, very relevant to all of us. Thanks so much to Gary and Neelam for your insights, and thanks everybody for whose comments are in the chat or whatever. I think we probably, as usual, could have gone on for another hour and it would have been still an enriching conversation. We wouldn't have tied in it, so we'll return to this. I think the key takeaways, you know, I've got 2 minutes to do this, really is we seem to be concluding that actually we don't want the hero bit of it. The hero's not right here in terms of our understanding as social entrepreneurs and as change makers. Gary in particular, I think, underlined the phrase, you know, from the book "Hero with a Thousand Faces," and described, you know, how the lone hero doesn't actually work. It's actually damaging potentially for the movement as a whole, and actually damaging us as individuals. So we need to look at the well-being, as Chris just touched on there. And so that side of things really important. And then Neelam coming from another angle, talking about the culture and the collectivism amongst Indian women and how they can be empowered and emerge as leaders, but still possibly looking for a leader. And then I thought Neelam's comment about how she had to disrobe, if you like, all of the pressure that was on her, which she got from joining Catalyst 2030, and begin to understand the power of networking and coming together and sharing. And it's interesting as well to hear, you know, from the Ashoka side, a possible understanding that maybe the emphasis on social entrepreneurs as individuals is something that may be out of date, and starting to look at systems change about getting the balance right between identifying the leaders and support for leaders, but actually it's about the organizations and the development of that organization over the longer term. I think Gary's point once again at the beginning about leaders in the past who've actually left movements and that the work is never done. So if you start thinking like that, it's about how you build sustainable organizations to create the change, to change the system in the long run. And in the process, we must all look after ourselves. So the word hero, it doesn't sit well with us anyway. None of us like it, I don't think. But we become that reluctant hero, as I kind of said in my question, because that's the culture. And so part of our job is to change the culture, change this celebrity culture, build a movement. and that will make us stronger and actually more impactful as the system changes. So I think that's the big takeaway. Hopefully I've kind of captured that. It's very difficult to do, as I say, in 2 minutes or a minute. And we can move on from there. So I once again, I'd like to really thank everyone. This has been an incredibly insightful session, incredibly stimulating, and as I say, right on message. It's very, very topical. We'll turn to it. So thank you all. We'll be having further webinars in and around this topic or on the issue of eldership as we move forward. And I'd just like to thank you all very much indeed. Thank you. See you next time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Neelam. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, everyone. Wonderful to see you, all my great friends. Bye.
Stay
Good to see
healthy.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.